Welcome to episode -6 of Successful Demo. Each episode analyze the theory and brighter aspects of one or more existing cards. Today we'll be looking at Media Blitz. And yeah, you can probably tell this was inspired from the very previous episode where I mentioned that Media Blitz was a good combo card with rebranding team after doing the Ad Blitz successful demo. So yeah, my eyes were caught on Media Blitz. I was like, oh, I haven't played with this card in a while. Let's see whether we can make it work in the current meta. But first, what is Media Blitz? It basically is a current that allows you to replicate an agenda the runner stole, but with several limitations. Most notably, you cannot replicate agendas that are defensive, you cannot replicate when scored or stolen agendas, and you can't replicate the project agendas. This is not an exhaustive list, but as it turns out, most of the agendas fall under one of these three categories. In fact, if you look at all the good agendas that are currently in the card pool, you realize that almost all of them fall under one of these three categories. And thus, there isn't really anything good that Media Blitz can copy. If you don't believe me, let's take a tour around all the agendas that I think are competitively viable. Again, it's not an exhaustive list. I'm sure you can think of other good agendas that I didn't mention, but this just illustrates what I'm trying to say. So starting with the neutrals, these neutral agendas are seen in almost every single deck, at least one copy of these. And yeah, some more aggressive decks want money from Corporate Sales Team or SSL, while more defensive decks want to play Global Food as the restricted card. Either way, they are all not Media Blitz eligible because they are either when scored agendas or there's outright defensive agendas that can't really be copied with Media Blitz. For the HP faction, they have a defensive agenda of their own in Ikawa Project, and they also have some very aggressive scoring agendas that reward you for scoring them, like Remote Enforcement and Hyperloop. However, these are all when scored triggers, so they're not constant effect agendas that give you a constant effect for the rest of the game, which is why Media Blitz cannot copy these. Jinteki has more defensive agendas, but they also have their fair share of when scored agendas. Once again, none of these are Media Blitz copyable. NBN, well, there finally is our very first Media Blitz copyable agenda. Thankfully, it's in faction. However, AR Enhanced Security, while it's a constant effect that you can copy for the rest of the game, if you look at the top tier CTM decks, you realize that they can very easily do without it, because CTM in itself is a very prime, breeding ground to score AR Enhanced Securities. The thing with 3-1 agendas is that they are so easy to score that you typically don't need Media Blitz to score them. You just play them naked on the table. In CTM's case, they're guarded by CTM's ability. So and hard-hitting use, of course. So you really don't need Media Blitz to get AR Enhanced Security to work. It just works out of the box. The other NBN agendas don't work with Media Blitz. Finally, good Wayland agendas. Well, there are several good ones, but they are all money-related, and money-related agendas tend to be when scored effects. Old Town is the exception. It doesn't fit into any of the categories, but it doesn't benefit from Media Blitz either. It's just something that rewards you as you advance the public agenda, and again, that's not something that Media Blitz can copy. So all in all, what I'm trying to say here is that Media Blitz is not necessarily a bad card in itself. It's just that there aren't any other good cards to combo Media Blitz with, and Media Blitz obviously is kind of dead by its own. If you play Media Blitz without the stolen agenda support, it basically is an expensive countercurrent. So that is the main problem with Media Blitz, the lack of good, constant effect agendas. Or not. Yeah, okay, I guess this is a pretty good agenda, so I guess we'll have to look at this card. Jumon is a powerful constant effect for the rest of the game, and is copyable by Media Blitz. Now, since I've already wrapped up this season finale of Successful Demo, I didn't actually get a chance to successfully demo Jumon, so I might as well give a quick run through of that card right here, right now. Jumon is basically a superior version of Saraswati Mnemonics in the sense that the advanced card, the card that you advance with Jumon, can immediately be used as the moment it's advanced. You can res it on the runner's turn, and you know, if it's an NGO front, you can pop it for money. So yeah, unlike Saraswati where you have to wait all the way until your very next turn to use the advanced card. So that is a huge deal. That is a very huge deal. It means that there are lots more cards that are actually playable with Jumon. The next thing to note is that Jumon has an interesting timing window. It fires at the end of your turn. This means that you cannot actually immediately score the card that you just advanced with Jumon because there's no scoring window. You have to wait until your next turn in order to score the card. So if you are doing it on an agenda, it's kind of like Mushin no Shin, except that, well, you can put the advanced card in a server. So that's a big advantage. Also note that Jumon only works on cards installed in a server. So you cannot use Jumon to advance ice. This is quite relevant if you are thinking of playing Jumon with advanceable ice. That doesn't work. So all that said about Jumon, it's a really good card for getting advanced cards on the table and even getting them defended, right? You can install cards in a defended remote and then advance them. But the biggest problem with Jumon is its ratio. No one wants to pay 6 advancement counters for an agenda that's only worth 2 agenda points. That's a terrible, terrible ratio. 5-2 is already really bad, as we saw with Fetal AI. 6-2 is completely unacceptable. So this is where Media Blitz comes in. Because Media Blitz basically says you don't have to score the Jumon. Let the runner do the dirty work for you. Let them steal the Jumon, and you leech off the benefits with Media Blitz. So they are actually a match made in heaven. Because not only does Media Blitz shore up Jumon's downside of being 6 advance, Jumon also shores up Media Blitz's downsides. Media Blitz is a problematic card for 2 reasons. It's not the cheapest current in the world. When counter currents are very rampant on the runner side, you know, it's very hard to justify paying 2 credits for a current that could immediately get overwritten the very next turn. So that's one problem. It's not cheap. The other problem is that Media Blitz can easily go away. It is not a permanent effect. It goes as soon as the runner steals an agenda or plays their own counter current. But Jumon shores up those weaknesses. Jumon repays Media Blitz's costs. You know, you paid 2 credits and a click to play Media Blitz, but then it immediately pays you back with 2 credits and 2 clicks because 2 advancement counters are worth that much. So you're recuperating your costs right there, right then, and it's very reliable because the runner does not have a window to override your Media Blitz before Jumon fires. If you use Media Blitz on any other agenda, say an AR Enhanced Security, the runner has the chance to play their own counter current before, you know, triggering AR Enhanced Security by, say, trashing a corp card. But with Jumon, because if it fires on the same turn as you play Media Blitz, you will get at least 1 Jumon trigger before Media Blitz goes away. Possibly more if the runner has no way to counter your Media Blitz. So that's really awesome, right? They really do synergize together very well, and they lend themselves very well to a Jinteki deck. Of course, it has to be Jinteki since Jumon's a Jinteki agenda. It lends itself very well to a Jinteki deck that you know, just jams a lot of advanced cards in the remote. Every single turn, just put a card in the remote, and you save 2 credits and 2 clicks because you get them advanced for free with Jumon. So that's how such a deck would look like. There are 2 versions. I'm going to be playing the version on the left. It's an Ag Infusion deck. You would probably think that Mti-Wekundu is the better Glacier ID, and you're probably right, but there are a few reasons why I chose Ag Infusion here, besides the fact that I've been playing a lot of Mti recently, so it's nice to have a little change. But there are several reasons that allow you to justify playing this deck in Ag Infusion. Firstly, the extra 2 influence is very important because Media Blitz is an influence hog, costing 3 influence each. You don't have any influence left for good ice. So having extra 2 influence to play a gatekeeper is huge, right? Especially since you're not Mti, that allows you to defend your Rashidas early and can be a very good scoring ice to defend your agendas. Next thing is you actually want the runner to run early game, right? Jumon is a card you want the runner to steal 1 copy of because you never want to pay 6 advancement counters to advance it the hard way. So if that's the case, you want your servers to be open. You don't want them to be fearful of the Mti-Wekundu threat. So Ag Infusion makes a lot of sense. Leave your R&D or HQ unguarded, let them run into it, steal your Jumon, and then that turns on your Media Blitz. Finally, Egg Infusion's ability stacks well with the Biovault and the Rents. We are playing 3 copies of Biovault because that synergizes so well with Jumon. Slap it down and Jumon activates it for you without extra cost. So you're gonna fire off a lot of Enderruns with Biovault. What better way to capitalize on them than to achieve critical mass by ending the run even more with Egg Infusion's ability. So that's one way to create a very impenetrable scoring remote. So realistically, Mti Kundu is probably the more consistent ID, but also gives you the advantage, the very sneaky advantage of being able to play Mushin no Shin as your efficiency card instead of Celebrity Gifts. Mushin, of course, having the downside that you need to install the advanced card in an undefended server. So the runner can easily run and steal your agendas there. But firstly, that's not a problem if you want them to steal your Jumon anyway. And secondly, you can still defend said remote with Mti's ability. So yeah, lots of choices. There are many ways you can play this Media Blitz Jumon deck. If you want to try this deck out for yourself but have no idea which ID to choose, you can consult this nice diagram here made by Dan Spinoza. Pick your alignment and you're good to go. Today we'll just be showcasing the Lawful Evil Egg Infusion. Let's get rockin'. So this is my opening hand. It's kind of bad. Like, I was hoping to top deck a Thimble Rig, but no. So, okay, we put a bunch of ice here, and then we res the Rashida and taunt Max into running it. So, one thing I realized, hacktivist meeting's a thing, okay? And sure, we can pay the cost of trashing a card from our hand, but we really don't want to. So we res the Rashida. We pre-res the Rashida against a Max because Max uses Levy as the restricted card, meaning they're not running Rumor Mill. They're not running Employee Strike. So they're definitely running Hacktivist. So you always res your Rashidas in advance. And the best part is, they didn't even contest it, allowing us to get a second Rashida off. Now your second Rashida, 2 is better than 1. And what more? No hacktivist, just a patchwork, just some money. We good. We good. They finally run R&D, and they get the one card, one time that we want. They walked right into our trap. They stole the Jumon for us. That's amazing. That could not have been scripted better, right? I mean, what were the chances? 3 in 39? We got it. We absolutely got it. Okay, so that's amazing. The agendas in the score area, and we denied them their armor core counter because they stole an agenda. They don't get viruses. We good. This is amazing. Okay, so now we know our opponents on that bloody turtle. Our next agenda is definitely to seal up all centrals. Perfect ice to counter armor core has came. We're gonna show them the IP block. Happily put it on R&D, because that's how we roll. That's what IP block is for. That's why we have 3 copies of it in our deck. It's just a big fat giant middle finger to armor core. We also put global food in the bin, even though Max will definitely run it next turn to get an armor core counter, because we are dumb. We are dumb this way. We are really stupid. But being stupid is fine. Eventually we learn from our mistakes. Whether it takes 1 game, 10 games, or 100 games even. One day we'll stop misplaying this way. Well, guess what? Our opponent isn't running archives. Not at all. Who knows why? Well, you can go ask Kevin Tame himself. I have no idea. All I know is that the global food in my bin is safe and secure. They didn't steal it. They're too busy playing daily casts, and they dropped a freedom through equality in the bin. Now that's important. That is very, very important. We will keep that in mind moving forward. But for now, it's time to seal up the archives. You would think I would play preemptive action right now, but there's better times to play it. I'd rather use it to recur trash cards, trash ice, that I would like to recur. So preemptive action can wait. For now, we are gonna seal up all centrals, so Max has no choice but to use her very inefficient conspiracy breakers. That is how you play a Glacier deck. That is how you roll with Ag Infusion. Because if they run the wrong server, and here they very bloody did, we get to res our Anansi. Amazingly. Even though our opponent has an MK Ultra in the bin, it cost them 11 credits. 11 just to get past this Anansi. They can't afford to. That's ridiculous. That's blowing open a scoring window wide open. They will never. So they let me fire the Anansi. I get to see the next 5 cards. Now, this is bad news bears, right? We look at our R&D and it's garbage. It's total garbage. If I could, I would shuffle my entire R&D and go through it again. There's no media blitz, so we cannot leverage on our opponent's Jumon, nor is there a Nisei Mark II for us to score. You see the global food that's sitting in our hand, we don't want to score it. It gives us nothing, absolutely nothing for scoring it, right? We want an agenda that does something, that ends the run, that has a benefit when it's scored. Global food doesn't provide that. We don't want to score this global food. We want to score Nisei, but it's not coming, and neither is the media blitz. At least with media blitz, I can justify jamming the global food in the remote because it'll get advanced for free, passively, as the game goes on. But that's not the case here. So we are very, very sad. This Anansi was supposed to be a blessing, a wonderful thing, a beastly piece of ice that murders our opponent, tears them to shreds, plinks at the hand, but instead we are sad because the next few cards of R&D are total garbage. What a pity. So now we are kind of stuck in an awkward situation where we have to wait out the next few cards of R&D. So there's not much we can do with our actions here. It's not like our opponent's gonna run either. Anytime they attempt to run, we just boop them into HQ. Meet my Anansi, my best friend. It's very evil. Alright, we find an NGO front. That's a card that is worth jamming in the remote, double advancing. Although, they probably figured this is an NGO front. It would be amazing if they stim hacked into the remote, but pretty sure they're not gonna do that. So, the game just goes on. Now, I could have played preemptive action here, recycle the global food in the bin, and, you know, perhaps get some more useful cards on R&D. But as I was a total blithering idiot, I chose not to. Wakey wakey, it's time for some action. The place is heating up because Kevin runs our remote. We have a gatekeeper on the outside. But we do not res it. Why? Why are we not resing ice that we installed? Because there's nothing of value in the remote. Absolutely nothing. We don't want to res the gatekeeper yet. We will only res it if there's an agenda in the remote. Otherwise, giving our opponent the ability to break the gatekeeper at 0 strength in the future is detrimental to securing our remote. So we give them the Biovault. This is amazing, right? Trashing our Biovault. Why would you ever give a free card for the runner to trash? Well, if it stops them from getting turtle counters, why not? That was amazing. So we lost one Biovault, but that turtle is stunted in growth. We take those. Right? We also have a second copy of Biovault in our hand, but instead of installing it, I am going to put useless agendas like global food into my bin. This is why I overdrew. So I now can get rid of the stupid global food, but I realized that the stupid one was actually me. I completely forgot about the first global food that was in my bin. I had no intention of putting match point in the bin for my runner opponent just like that. That would be absolutely foolish. If my opponent just ran archives here, they would basically win the game, almost certainly. Man, I survive another turn, another harrowing turn of bluffing agendas in the bin. Not gonna happen again. We're not gonna make the same mistake 3, 4, 5, even 10 times, because now the preemptive action will kick in. Both global foods are going back into the deck along with the Rashida, because by this point I'm impatient. I've been waiting far too long for a card that is useful to come up. All I've been drawing are ice, money, and useless agendas. I need a Media Blitz, a Nisei there. Just something I can jam in a remote that can advance my game. Surely that's not too much to ask for. I've been drawing half my deck already. Not seen a single one of those cards, even though I ran 3 copies of each. Such is life. Such is. Well, my opponent goes for it again. That Biovault just looks too much like a Nisei to ignore, and they have the money to go for it. So I let them in. The Chiyashi is gonna cost them big time. It's gonna mill 6 cards from the deck, forcing them to levy because they're out of steam. I'm still not resing the Gatekeeper, mind you. It's not a Nisei in the remote. This is very telling. I could boot my opponent, but a 6-strength Gatekeeper is far too much, far too good to give up. Besides, they probably already have Stimhack in their hand anyway to contest the remote one more time. So I give them the second Biovault. They trash it again. They take a tag again from the IP block. They are incurring so much tax, all for nothing. Just keeping me honest here. Honestly, I would have put a Nisei there in the remote just for my opponent to steal. I would have given it to Kevin. I just didn't have it with me. That would have been the Nisei that he would have stolen. But nope. Nope, it wasn't, because I just couldn't draw one. Maybe not seeing those cards was good after all. Maybe, just maybe. Well, the end is nigh. My opponent's out of deck. They have to levy. So they're gonna play the last cards from their hand before they go through the deck again. My opponent's keeping up very well. They're not leaving me with a scoring window. Not that I have any agendas to score anyway. But they are always constantly above 5 credits. So I always have to worry about them getting through my remote as they perform the classic Patchwork Levy combo here. Discarding a card from their hand to activate Patchwork, using Patchwork to use the Levy that's in the bin. That's an amazing combo. So, yes, now they are back with a fully stacked deck. And what am I to do? That money is going to come in for them again. I can only drag them through the remote so many times. I'm starting to run out of fodder. My Biovaults, 2 are gone. And at this point, my internet acts up. Ugh! JNet, how could you do such a thing? We are having a very intense game right here. This is not the time to disrupt the mood as we advance the NGO front in the remote and place a Kakugo on R&D. So we put a Kakugo on R&D because we are afraid of indexing. We know that our opponent has no employee strike, so as long as we have Ag Infusion fodder on R&D to boop our opponent during an indexing run, we won't get indexed. As I see my opponent screech in agony, I realize what just happened. They took some drugs, but in their hallucinating state, they've ripped apart all the Davids in the deck, and they're now stranded in the bin, never to be used again. Don't do drugs, kids. It's not good for you. Losing access to David is a huge deal in this matchup. That David is their golden ticket into HQ, breaking a Nancy, or the remote, dealing with that ginormous Chiyashi. What are they to do? Use real money to break ice? That's unreasonable. It can't happen. So, Kevin sits there, contemplating and mulling over their regretful life decisions. As I'm still Still looking for a bloody media blitz or something to jam in the freaking remote. That's it, I said. That's it. I've had more than enough waiting. I can't go on any longer. The agendas are gonna come sooner or later, and it's those agendas that I don't want. I better get this 3-pointer out of the way while I still can. Just watch me top deck a Nisei Mark II right after this, without a remote to jam it in. It's gonna be the worst feeling ever. But first, my opponent goes for R&D. So, the Kakugo is pretty decent here, but I'm not gonna res it, as I promised. It's gonna be booping fodder, and now that I can boop my opponent into HQ, they'll be forced to eat yet another Anansi trigger. Now, I had two choices. I could boop them into HQ for the Anansi, or the remote for Chiyashi. Even though Chiyashi seems like the more impactful boop, I wanted the Anansi to fire because the first subroutine is so important for me. I want to see what's on the top of my deck. I want to arrange those cards and make sure that I'm well positioned after I score this global food to then chain into something else, to do something productive with my turns instead of sitting there like a sitting duck. I love ducks. I love sitting on chairs, but I do not love being a sitting duck. So, my opponent overrides that Omakua during the Anansi encounter when installing the MK Ultra. That's my go-to signal. That's the green light that turns on the Thimble Rig and Excalibur in my hand. I've been waiting for this moment forever. But first, the Anansi trigger. I finally see a card I want in Media Blitz. That card! I've been searching for you all this while. Where were you? Were you stuck in the previous successful demo video? I didn't think so. Well, late is better than never. We are going to get ourselves a Media Blitz. We are even going to draw it with Anansi's ability. Media Blitz is going on top of our deck. The next card on top of our deck will be Jumon. The reason we put Jumon as the new top card of our deck is because we are fairly confident that our opponent's not going to run R&D in the next 2 clicks on this turn. Then after that, I can draw the Jumon on my mandatory draw and have it safe in HQ, because HQ at this point is much safer than R&D, which might be besieged by indexings and has a weaker ice in IP block. IP block on R&D now is less useful now that Omakua has hit the bin. Previously, IP block is super effective because it keeps dealing tags every time the runner runs through it with Omakua. But now that my opponent has made the conscious decision to abandon the turtle and leave it stranded on the shore, well, IP block has served its use, and now it's time for the Thimble Rig and Excalibur to shine. Right, so we have our wonderful Media Blitz here, and our opponent is actually going for a remote here. It's the global food. Okay, we do not want them stealing the global food, so this is when Gatekeeper fires. This is why we've left that ice unrest all this while. We punish our opponent for levying. Their Black Orchestra is nowhere to be seen in the bin because they levied. Had I resed it on the earlier run, when they haven't levied yet, their Black Orchestra would be in play. They would easily be able to bust through this remote and steal this agenda with lots of money left to spare. This is the beauty of leaving ice unrest. This is how we roll. And the best part is, we don't need to score the global food this turn. Media Blitz will do it for us. Copying Jumon's ability, we get 2 free advancement counters on global food. It's the best feeling ever. So now we are threatening to score this global food next turn. Our opponent probably thinks it's another copy of Jumon, but doesn't matter. Either way, an agenda's getting scored here, and they can't do anything about it. Oh, or they can. They override our current with Freedom 3 quality, which doesn't really matter. The freedom goes back in the bin because we scored an agenda of our own. So it's not a bad idea. Our opponent kind of spent 3 credits there on the Freedom 3 quality, only to have it trash immediately. But I think that was the right play, because had they not done that, my Media Blitz would still be in play, and I would get lots of Jumon counters on the card in Server 1 right now. So, you know, countering my current with Media Blitz isn't always the worst idea. And here, Kevin makes a very wonderful play, running R&D 4 times against my Enderun Thimble Rig. Spotting that the turning wheel was likely going to be the win condition. They went for that, and I had no defense against it. I just had to swap the Thimblerick to the inside at the start of my turn. That was the best I could do. But it was a bit too late, as they now have 5 turning wheel counters. Can our dear friend Kevin pull back from this sticky situation? Where are they going to dump their turning wheel counters on? Only one way to find out. Are they going to run this turn? Are they going to give it their all for R&D? Or are they going to blow it on an empty HQ? No, of course they're going to play the Maker's Eye. They have indexing and the Maker's Eye. And I can't stop them because I don't have a bloody Nisei. Ugh. Okay. So, there's the Nisei. The Nisei I've been waiting for all this while, hiding at the bottom of my deck. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised that by the end of that 5-card deep dig, my opponent hasn't found more than one agenda. They're all in R&D. 6 agendas in R&D of 12. None to be seen. Where did the agendas go? It's unthinkable. One thing's for sure though, all the biovaults are dead. Completely, utterly ruined because of my stupidity. I kept dragging my opponent through the remote and kept letting them trash my biovaults for free. So every single one of those biovaults trashed from the remote or during that Maker's Eye R&D run. They're now sitting in the bin, broken. Which is a shame. A shame! A shame, do you hear me? Because this turn would have been a wonderful turn to install Biovault and play Media Blitz. Get the double advancement counter going, and Biovault can then protect my next agenda. A pseudo Nisei, if you will. Because my Niseis just haven't been showing up. Thankfully for me, my opponent is poor. They've spent so much energy and time getting into the R&D only to see nothing. They're gonna check my archives now, thinking I might have been up to no good, but they were wrong. If anything, they gave me a free Thimblerick trigger, because this was the defense I needed to get my next agenda out of the way. You see, without Biovaults available and without drawing a Nisei, the only way I can force my opponent through the remote multiple times is to use Eigenfusion's ability. This was why I did the Thimblerick jiggle. It went to archives, and then it went into the remote, and then finally back onto R&D again, so I could get an unres ice on the remote inside of the Chiyashi position. That way, they will be forced to break through Chiyashi twice, which is unreasonable. So here, I attempt to score the second global food. It's not the ideal agenda. You only want to score 1 global food because the other agendas can be 2-pointers. But again, the Niseis are hiding. Those playful, cheeky Niseis. Akiko and Caprice have taught them too well. They are now chilling at the bottom of my deck, probably laughing at my exasperation. This game has gone on for far too long, I think, and I believe Kevin thinks the same way. He's been playing very well. He's gotten the correct turning wheel counters, exploiting my R&D, Maker's Eyeing for 5 accesses, but they just keep falling short. My opponent just isn't getting lucky at all. So now, they make one last ditch effort into R&D, only to see the most disgusting of ice ever printed by mankind, and a Nancy. Wow, a Nancy on R&D, and on HQ, and a Chiyashi guarding the remote. That's utterly gross. And sure enough, without ice destruction, there's only so much my opponent could do. I get the 3rd Anansi trigger this game, and where's my Nisei? Oh, you don't want to give me a Nisei. Fine. Fine. The only agenda I can possibly score is the last global food. So I draw the last global food that I'm gonna score as my winning agenda. Yeah, you heard me right. My score plan is going to be 3 global foods, because that's the only bloody agenda I can draw. Such is life. My opponent runs out of deck for the 2nd time, but this time without a levy backup. They are now hosed. Their economy is stunted. They are done. We score the last global food, and with our remaining click, install the global food we just drew off the Anansi. Then, the Media Blitz triggers on Jumon, giving us 2 advancement counters on the global food in the remote, essentially accelerating our way towards 9 agenda points. This would not have been possible without the help of Jumon. I would have to spend the next couple turns installing and advancing agendas, which would give my opponent time to find the remaining agendas. And in this scenario, they only had 1 turn's worth of Omar triggers to go with. With a freedom through equality and a last-ditch Omar run, it's now or never. Either they find the agenda on top of R&D or they don't. But I already knew the outcome, because I saw the top 5 cards of the deck with Anansi. I knew that they had no chance to win. They ran HQ here. There's no agendas in HQ, nor is the top card of R&D an agenda. Jumon allowed me to close out the game before my opponent could get another Omar run. Another shot of going for the win. So by all means, that was a successful demo of Media Blitz Jumon. We managed to pull the combo off. It managed to do some work, allowing us to accelerate the end game by allowing us to chain global food into global food. I mean, seriously, the idea of scoring 3 global foods for the win is utterly ridiculous, but whatever the case is, we got there. However, I think if you play this deck more than once, you'll find that actually this deck has a lot of glaring weaknesses. And I think more often than not, your games will end up miserably than spectacularly, as was the case here. Let me show you one of the games I had before this, also with Kevin Tame. Suffice to say, it didn't go very well. As you see here, I had a pretty similar opening to the first game that you saw, where I managed to get an early Rashida off in a protected remote with a HQ Ice. But then Rashida just draws you into all these agendas that you don't want to score. I could have tried to go for a turn 2 Nisei score here, but against Max, it's very likely that they will mill Paperclip or an Omakua, or get an Omakua on the table. So I gambled that they actually had a Paperclip in hand, so I put the Jumon in the remote instead of the Nisei. I wanted to res the Kakugo here to induce the Paperclip install, but instead they just ran my hand and I realized I couldn't res my HQ Ice. From then on, they just picked the agendas from my hand one by one. It was the ugliest game I've ever seen, and I couldn't even defend HQ by booping them into the remote Ice because Kakugo does jack shit. So yeah, I just basically conceded at this point because this was a very ugly way to start the game. It also induces you into making bad decisions, because if you're playing a Jumon Media Blitz deck, you are trying to score the Jumon, so it's a win-win, right? Either you score the Jumon yourself, or your opponent steals it and gives you Media Blitz. But in this particular scenario, when you're stuck on 3 credits, and your opponent has 4 points, including a Nisei, yeah, it doesn't feel good at all. Mistakes were made. I definitely misplayed this big time, but if you think about it, even if I jammed the Nisei in the Kakugo server there, I wouldn't have come out any better. I think the only play I could have done there that would have been correct was to jam the second Rashida. But even then, if the second Rashida gives me more agendas to deal with, I don't think I'm winning this game. And that's the problem. You tend to draw too many agendas, and aside from the Nisei Mark IIs, they are really difficult to score. You never want to score a global food or 6 advanceable Jumon. That just takes up too much time in the remote. That particular game illustrated a gigantic problem in my agenda suite. Even though it seems resilient at first glance, you're running all 2-pointers, right? Jumon being a 2-pointer suddenly becomes an advantage because the runner requires 4 agendas to win. However, because you are playing mostly passive agendas, it means that you are not really suited for aggressively advancing agendas. So if they do clump up in your hand, you are screwed. It also doesn't help that your scoring mechanisms, your bio vaults, your big ice, these all require time to set up to come online. I found myself pushing a Jumon when I couldn't adequately defend it, right? It would have been much better if I pushed agendas at a stage in the game where I had my big ice set up and my bio vaults advanced. But in that situation, I was caught with too many agendas in hand and no way to get rid of them. Perhaps this deck requires more agenda shuffling back into R&D. Yeah, it does. It is meant to be played slower than the usual co-op deck after all. Even in the game that I won, the first game that I showcased, actually there were 8 cards remaining in R&D and 4 of them are agendas. That goes to show you how much time you need to set up all your centrals to have at least 1 big ice each in order to have a decent shot of winning. If you want a speedier deck, a more nimble, a faster deck, I suggest you look elsewhere. And in fact, I have done my literature review. I was curious as to see if anyone else on NetRunnerDB has done the Media Blitz Jumon combo before. And sure enough, the one person that did it was none other than good old Sanjay. This is Sanjay's deck that he took to 14th place in Cash Refresh. And there's very good reason for actually running this seemingly suboptimal combo in Cash Refresh, because the power level is dumbed down. A lot of, seemingly bad combos suddenly become a lot better. Not to mention the fact that Sanjay chose Mtiwekundu as his ID of choice, which I do believe is actually the superior choice over Egg Infusion. Seems really good, and he makes very good use of the cards available in the Cash Refresh mode in order to enact his game plans. You can see some very similar aspects. Maxing out Nisei Mark 2s is a very good target agenda that to score aggressively. Viral weaponization, adds more aggressive scoring agendas to the mix, which is awesome, and it's something that my deck lacks. Gene Splicer, a very good alternative to Global Food to get the last dangling agenda point, because Sanjay isn't running Global Food, he needs the 7th agenda point from somewhere else. Yeah, just a lot of good ideas here. You see a lot of similarities between our decks, especially with regards to some of the core cards, which I'll talk about right now. Some combo cards that I didn't get to show off in this particular game. Firstly, Media Blitz combos well with any powerful ID ability because it serves as an alternate counter current. Usually, if you're playing Egg Infusion or Mtiwekundu decks, you typically also run scarcity of resources to counter Employee Strike, because Strike just debilitates you so badly. But with Media Blitz, you don't need to force include scarcity in your deck anymore. Media Blitz is your counter current, so it works very well as a counter current, in addition to providing a very powerful effect when active with Jumon, right? So in both Sanjay's deck and my deck, Media Blitz does wonders against Employee Strike. What about Jumon itself? Well, both Sanjay and I were running Biovaults and NGO Fronts, all 3 copies of each, simply because they do so much work with Jumon. Anything that requires 2 advancement counters for maximum effect will appreciate Jumon's presence. And because both of these cards do not require clicks in the cost, they are paid abilities, instant speed abilities, this means that even if the runner runs them on the very next turn, you can still fire them for their effects. In Biovault's case, you get to end the runner's run. In NGO Front's case, you get to get money. So overcoming the limitation of Jumon by, playing cards that don't really care whether it's the runner or the co-op's turn, both cards will still play out. Again, I didn't get to show off the Biovaults because they all got trashed, but you can imagine they would do so much work had I had Biovaults in my hand at any time when Media Blitz was active. The next combo I want to talk about is stuff that can score Jumon in 2 turns. Because Jumon's a 6 advanced agenda, you cannot score it in 2 turns. You need at least 3 turns. The first turn you install it, the second turn you triple advance it, and the third turn you triple advance it one more time to get 6 advancement counters on. Some in-faction cards that circumvent this limitation include Mushin no Shin and Saraswati Nanonix. So these are cards to consider if you're playing Jumon without Media Blitz. Of course, since we are playing it with Media Blitz, we don't really care about this downside. What we want is for the runner to steal Jumon and for us to play Media Blitz. So that's about it. Again, I hope you enjoyed this jankier than usual episode of Successful Demo. I like how it was really inspired from my previous Successful Demo video on Ad Blitz becoming now Media Blitz. And thanks very much to Kevin Tame. That was a very good game and a wonderful opponent, as well as Sanjay. Never failing to surprise me with your innovations. So, for the rest of you, happy net running. See you next time. Welcome to episode negative 6 of Successful Demo. Each episode analyze the theoretical and practical aspects of one or more new